After Cold War, the world went through globalization. Now world is going through a new race called digitization. So in this digital world, semiconductor manufacturing has become a priority for every nation on earth. That's why a global semiconductor race takes place between the United States, Europe, and Asia. Each economy or regional bloc attempts to control the semiconductor productions. The countries are investing heavily on semiconductor research and development facilities, material production, vital technologies, and logistics to make themselves self reliant in the semiconductor manufacturing. The nations across the world felt the need of producing semiconductor of its own. When the COVID 19 pandemic hit hard the world, then they realized that they have to set their own businesses regarding the semiconductor manufacturing. During that time period, the logistics supply of the raw material hit hard. Every organization felt the scarcity of semiconductor due to the excessive globalization. The companies set their units across the world in different countries. When the COVID 19 hit, then due to the lockdown, export import halted due to the lack of human resources. And the TV, mobile, panel manufacturers across the world faces huge losses because of the lack of semiconductor supply. Although at that time the demand in the market was very high, but the companies failed to comply to those demands, failed to deliver the goods to the customers. And countries across the world felt that they were facing the huge losses due to the slowdown and that their growth was lower and their GDP was shrinking. And their GDP also shrinked during that time when the lockdown was there in their countries. That is why the European Commission unveiled its multi-billion-dollar Euro plan to boost the European production of semiconductors. Now the biggest question is why the European Commission is doing so. Because the first reason is the European Commission trying to reduce its dependence on the Asia, especially on China, for key components using the electric cars, key components that is actually used in the electric cars and the smartphones manufacturing. Because China is trying to snoop against the countries to get the informations. That is why the Europe is very much tense about the Chinese presence in the semiconductor industry. That is why they are trying to give boost to their own industry to make the semiconductor reliable for their own goods. As we all know, the semiconductor hold the geostrategic and the economical importance. So for the strategic priority and to make the European economy stronger, Europe took this step. You all know that the Taiwan is a very excellent semiconductor manufacturing country. They have TSMC, an excellent semiconductor manufacturing company that is providing the semiconductors all across the world in every countries, almost every countries of the world. And because of their semiconductor production, that countries TSMC is contributing hugely in their economy. They are earning huge amounts of forex reserve for their own country. So Europe has realized that they need that kind of organizations within their European commissions. And that country and that economical benefits will going to be the huge for the Europe to dominate the world again. When the colonial time was there in the Europe, then the Europe was dominating the world. Now the domination has shifted to the United States and the other countries. Now they want it back. That is why they are hugely investing in this sector. The third reason is that it is also in the response of the trade tension between the US and China. Because during the Donald Trump reign, the US was trying to block the China because the China was challenging the US supremacy. The supremacy, economical supremacy and the military supremacy. That is why the United States blockade against the China, the Europe is trying to build up their own businesses within their geographical boundary. Now the Chip Act of the Europe, which is a major step. This is the Europe's plans to regain the global leadership in semiconductors, because manufacturing of semiconductors overwhelmingly takes place in Taiwan, China, South Korea. And now Europe wants to play the bigger role in this sector by mobilizing $49.1 billion of public and the private investment. And these 49 billion fund enable Europe to reach its ambition to double its current market share to 20% in 2030. Europe took this massive revolutionary step because it cannot stand still and watch these opportunities pass by. It is the right time for the Europe to join the race, because the world is getting into the new world order after the COVID-19 pandemic. This fund will going to open up important opportunities for both technological excellence and energy efficient technologies. And this act will help Europe to go from innovation to industrialization, from lab to fab. So the Chips of the Europe initiative will finance the strategic industrial infrastructure, pilot lines, and the design platform to test and industrial processes. And it will create the new applications to connect the automobile and the health sector, telecommunication, and security. This unique infrastructure will open to all players of large and the small scale, European and international. So this will going to help the Europe and the world to not to rely on the China or not to rely on the other Asian countries. And this Chief Act will going to diversify the semiconductor industry of the world. But this act will going to face some obstructions in the European Commissions. And what are those obstructions? The proposal will need the approval of the EU member states and European Parliament itself, where the opinions will vary between the ambitions of industrial heavyweights such as Germany, France, and Italy, and those of the small states that are worried about closing of valuable supply chain with Asia. Some member states led by the Netherlands and the Nordic nations will also resist any plan to widen the scope for the state aid. The Commission is planning to make it easier for European Union governments to make it easier for the EU governments to pump money for the cheap manufacturers, for the cheap marketing. These individual states are worried because they do not want to end up in a position with the huge US company getting a bunch of money to open a factory in one big member states. Europe just do not want any foreign company open any of their conglomerates with the help of this cheap act money, but they want the investment from the other nations in their own act, by their own term, by the term the Europe fits things fit for their nations. So it is a very complicated thing, but according to me, this act will going to pass, and this act will going to get priority because it will going to help the European economy to grow further. The vaccine crisis has shown the world that being excellent in research and development is not enough to cover the nation's needs. They need the manufacturing base. So nation needs to be able to dispose of the proper production facilities. Through this act, the Europe is not only making itself self-reliant, but this act is equipping the Europe to become a factory to which will cooperate or capable itself in gaining and increasing share in growing global market and exporting semiconductors to the world. The world's developing nations are now trying to anticipate future crises and to be able to draw on a range of responses to such an export authorizations and authorizing mechanisms or the priority orders. India has also came up with a 76,000 PLI scheme regarding semiconductor manufacturing. The India is also giving the importance to the semiconductor manufacturers, because India has also realized the importance of the semiconductor industry, because it will going to help the India to earn the huge amounts of forexes. It will help the India to gain the resources from the other countries, to gain the resources for his own country, to gain the resources for the ports. So, and the China is also trying to make itself self-reliant in making the chips, but they are failing to do so because of the lack of expertise and the innovation. They do not have the experts in making the semiconductors, because they are believed in cloning. They believed in copying. So copying is not be able to make their industry big. So that is why they are failing in making the semiconductor industry valuable for the others. And the US's companies are also investing hugely. Intel is investing billions of dollars to expand their businesses, to expand their market. The Taiwan's TSMC is also investing huge to make themselves the world's largest semiconductor manufacturers. So that is why they are diversifying their manufacturing bases. They are trying to build their manufacturing bases in Europe. In Lithuania, they have already invested $200 million. So that is why these companies are trying to invest. These countries are trying to allure the other organizations, trying to allure the other companies to invest in their country in their own term. So semiconductor is an very important in their strategically development digital age, because everything is digital in today's world, and the China is the main factor in these things. So at last we have reached our questions part. The first question is, what is AEG 21, which is new recently? The first option is COVID-19 vaccine candidate. Second option is meteor. Third option is semiconductor coating. Fourth option is mosquito protein. The second question is, which institute developed the Energy Swaraj Jatra bus? The first option is IIT Madras. Second option is IIT Bombay. Third option is IIIT Pune. Fourth option is IIT Guwahati. If anyone have any questions regarding this topic, or anyone have any questions, any of the topics I have already discussed, then you can mail me to my email address, which is tuhin.power.academy@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention.